Hey guys, so today I'm going to be talking about visuals and learning. I'm going to be showing you four very simple things: ARCs, dual code, cost, and COP. And I'll explain all these things. First, let's talk about ARCs. ARCs is all about the role of visuals in learning, and this ARCs is just an acronym for attention, retention, comprehension, and setting. So visuals fulfill one of these roles. Now, it's not limited to only one, so it might serve two or more roles at once. So for instance, a visual can help you pay attention and at the same time can help you understand something. Let's talk about attention. Gaining the attention of students is a precondition to any kind of learning. And what that just basically stands for is just that visuals help make information salient. And salient information is what you learn in a sense. So visuals help grab your attention. Next is retention. Visuals also have a way of helping you remember things. And this goes to something called dual code theory. What that basically represents is that dual code theory proposes that information is stored in long-term memory, both as verbal propositions and as mental images. Now let's actually talk about dual code theory now. Dual code. What it stands for is, think about cat, right? You have on the left side, you have the verbal component, cat, also called a logogen. On the right side, you have the nonverbal component, the image of a cat. And both of these now go in separate processes which get stored in your long-term memory, your verbal long-term and your nonverbal long-term. And they can occur individually or simultaneously. You might just remember the word cat, or you might just remember the picture of the cat. It's also possible you could remember both. What dual code is saying is that the more information you have, in a sense, when you have a verbal component and a nonverbal component, you're much more likely to remember it than if you just only had one. And there are multiple evidences supporting this, and as you can see on this slide. Also, another really cool statistic is that we absorb best by using multiple senses. Make your impressions visual, verbal, and auditory. A study done at the University of Texas found that people remember, this is by Metcalf, 1997, 10% of what they read, 20% of what they hear, 30% of what they see, 50% of what they see and hear, 70% of what they say, and 90% of what they say and do. Overall, it goes back to retention, is that what I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. What I do, I understand. Now let's talk about comprehension, which is one great quote on this, is that solving a problem simply means representing it so as to make the solution transparent. There are a whole bunch of studies on this, and one of them involved that when people were given a spatial problem and they had to choose between giving the text with directions or choosing a map, the map was so much better at helping individuals understand this information. Other things, for instance, is visuals can use as illustrations. They can help you understand concrete information, and there's an example shown here. It could also help you show abstract information, for instance, like the earlier and later and continuum of time. Another way that illustrations and visuals can help is in the form of a mind map. And here is a mind map on how to create mind maps. And overall, this is just an example on how visuals can help you understand. Next is setting. Visuals can help you create something called situated learning. What that basically just means is that what you learn in an environment cannot be separated from the environment. So when you help somebody, show them a visual, recreating the environment you want them to learn it from, now they're much more easier to remember when they are in that environment. Like training, situated learning. Another is that it helps you illustrate metaphors. Here's an example of something called vorticity, which is a difficult physical concept. But when you think about a skater turning and opening their arms and moving slower and closing their arms to moving faster, it helps you understand this concept of vorticity so much easier. So overall, ARCs, which is the role of visuals. Next is cost. Cost is how do you design illustrations, and it stands for clarity, organization, salience, and test. And I'm just going to go through these really quickly. Clarity is that pictures should have the minimum complexity to fulfill the objective. So for instance, when on the left side you have the map of the world, and on the right side is the map of New Brunswick. Which one is right is really depends on what you need to do. If you just want to move around New Brunswick, you don't need the picture of the map. So your visual has to have the right amount of complexity, the right amount of clarity for the objective you want to fulfill. Organization. For instance, how do you organize the material will really determine how people see things. And in this example, for instance, as you can see on the right side, it's so much easier to see the information. Salience. It helps you make things important, grabs your attention. And as we talked about before, attention and having the attention of the reader is one of the preconditions to learning. Next is testing. Ultimately, no matter how well you design an image, you have to test on users to get accurate feedback. So you want to make sure you test the image. And that is cost. And finally, COP. What this stands for is how do you design visuals to work with text? It stands for complementary and proximity. Complementary meaning that you want text to make sense with the image you're working on. As you've seen in numerous examples before, if the text and the images conflict, then it's not helping anybody. And finally, proximity. Contiguity, the state of bordering or being in direct contact with something, is one of the most powerful ways to simulate learners to associate. And as you can see right here, normally you could just see a lion, but here with the text fabulous, you instantly think of that. And these are the four things: ARCs, dual code, cost, and COP. And if you want the sources, voila. I hope you had a great time, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation.